What are the key fantasy football elements you need to know in picks 21 through 31 of my latest mock draft for Sporting News? It's time to break it down right here and right now as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. I have another mock draft up. It's a three-rounder there that you can check out. I'll update that again before teams go on the clock for real. Believe it or not, a week from Thursday, that's a week from tomorrow, April 27th in Kansas City, we'll have the first round go down. We know there's only 31 picks this year because the Dolphins have forfeited their selection. So we're going to break down the rest of my mock draft here. That's picks 21 through 31. If you missed 1 through 10 and 11 through 20, those shows are up on our archives. We said we're going to look at sleepers beyond the first round in our final two shows of the week. Thanks for making us your first listen every day here at Locked On Fantasy Football. Subscribe and follow for free wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are appreciative if you're an everydayer. That's someone who listens to the show every day. If not, welcome, and hopefully you'll have the insight all off season here for you as we keep tabs on fantasy football, advanced scouting mode here through the 2023 NFL Draft and beyond as we count down to the 2023 fantasy football season. All right, it's time to dive into the bottom of my mock draft. We're going to start at pick 21. The Chargers would be on the clock here, and the Chargers could go in many directions here. I have them in my latest two mock drafts going for wide receiver. The wide receiver changes with those two mocks, but I think they could use a third receiver here. And then they got Josh Palmer, but Keenan Allen's getting a little bit older. He actually turns 31 on April 27th draft night. Mike Williams is a durability risk. They had a big-time struggle replacing Allen when he was hurt last year. It just wasn't the same offense for Justin Herbert. They need to think about the future of Herbert and the future of Allen, that he may not have too many good years left of durable production. So it makes sense to get someone who can work the slot well and also transition to the outside later and make some big plays there. And get a little bit more downfield pop here for Justin Herbert. Mike Williams can provide that. Josh Palmer to some degree. They've got some young receivers as well, but receiver would make a lot of sense. The Chargers don't have any glaring needs elsewhere, so go for receiver in this wheelhouse at 21. Either Zay Flowers out of Boston College compares favorably to Tyler Lockett of the Seahawks. I think it's a Tyler Lockett clone, the way he can line up inside or outside, make big plays, reliable downfield. Jackson Smith-Njigba is more of a technician out of Ohio State, runs great routes, quickness, hands everywhere all over the field, a little bit like Keenan Allen. So there are options here. I think Zay Flowers could work very well for the Chargers more immediately. Jackson Smith-Njigba might be better for the long term. So either receiver, I think, would be great for the Chargers, boost the value of Justin Herbert. He's also going to help Allen and Williams have key coverage matchups develop here because this player is going to have impact right away, either Flowers or Smith-Njigba. So I think the Chargers are leaning wide receiver early. They can tap into defensive depth later in this draft. Offensive line, they're pretty darn good up front with Rashawn Slater coming back healthy. They have Zion Johnson up front. They think Jean-Marie Salyer, who filled in well left tackle, can fill in at right tackle. So Chargers are pretty set offensively. Get another weapon here. The Austin Eckler concern is something that they can table. He's coming back here at least for another year. They'll look for a running back later to address that situation, the future of Eckler as he gets older with his volume. At 22, I have the Baltimore Ravens on the clock, and I have them sticking to the same player in both of my mocks. That's Cam Smith, the corner out of South Carolina. Big guy, a lot of size at corner. So a lot of these receivers are going to be held in check. You look at the receivers in this division. Allen Robinson is now in the division with the Steelers. So he's a big receiver, as well as having George Pickens, we know he's the classic, a big receiver there, so you need to have a better corner there with Marcus Peters fading and then into his 30s here. He's a free agent. They didn't bring him back. So Ravens need a direct replacement right away to be contenders at this very moment. Depending on how the Lamar Jackson situation resolves itself, if Lamar comes back, then they'll use his 22 pick on defense for sure. And corner is the one that screams a big need. They've had Cam Smith in for a visit. So you not only have George Pickens, you got to deal with T. Higgins, a big target there on the outside for the Bengals. Jamar Chase is more of a bracket coverage type deal. The Browns also have Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So getting Cam Smith in there is going to be pretty key for the Ravens and can contain some of the explosive passing potential of the other teams in the AFC North. All right, let's go to pick 23. I had Flowers going to the Chargers at first, then Jackson Smith and the Jigba with the latest 3-rounder. The Vikings could use a linebacker to clean up things on the second level. Trenton Simpson out of Clemson will make a lot of sense. He's going to stuff the IDP stat sheet no matter where he goes in the first round. That did change, however. I have them with the Chargers going after JSN and Jackson Smith and the Jigba. The Vikings should be going after Zay Flowers. Here's why. We know they released Adam Thielen in the offseason. They've got now KJ Osborne as the number 2 receiver. There's Jalen Reagor as your number 3. So pretty weak drop off there. You also have TJ Hawkinson at tight end. So pretty good with what you have in your top 2 receivers with Jefferson and Hawkinson, but you need that third target here. So if Flowers is not going to the Chargers, I think Flowers can have immediate impact, making big plays, playing off Jefferson, and KJ Osborne in the slot for the Vikings, really helping the big arm of Kirk Cousins. So Flowers can stretch the field. We know that. He's a very good receiver all over, inside, outside. The Vikings need to replace that of Adam Thielen. Thielen lost a few steps with the speed. He became more of a red zone target. I think you'll get a little bit more dynamic factor with Flowers there working in the middle of the field. As again, he can also line up outside and be effective there. So Vikings will definitely be thinking about receiver here after moving on from Thielen and looking for some bigger play upside there to help Jefferson. All right, those are picks 21 through 23 right now in my latest 2 mocks. We'll explore what I've had down for the other teams, picking 24 through 31 in the first round. In our final 2 segments here as we break down my latest 2023 NFL mock drafts for Sporting News. We will again look beyond the first round and look at day 2 and day 3 sleepers that could have a big impact on fantasy football. We'll do that with our final 2 shows a week. Subscribe or follow for free wherever you get your podcast. Thanks again for being every dayer and making us your first listen every day. And a lot of good draft stuff to come before next Thursday. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is definitely an exciting time of year in baseball as the season is just about through its first month. And really, it doesn't get better than seeing all the action. And we've seen a lot of grand slams, no-hitters, double plays are coming back here, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockdown, sign up, place your first bet. You'll get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. Aaron Judge, we know he's a good bet to always hit a home run. You can look at pitchers such as Shohei Ohtani. Is he going to go over on strikeouts with one of his high-pitched starts? You can look at that. You can maybe look at a combination of those elite players, either batting or pitching, and you can build a single game parlay with your favorite match of the day. It's a lot of fun to do, especially if you're involving your favorite team. So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. FanDuel, proud sponsor of Locked On Fantasy Football, as well as an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we'll continue the show in a moment. Again, thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. If you're an everydayer, shout out especially to you. And again, more looking at draft prospects, sleepers for fantasy football in days 2 and 3 in our final 2 shows of the week. Let's go to pick 24 in the first round of my mock draft. The Jaguars on the clock. I stuck with Keely Ringo, a cornerback out of Georgia as well. So getting some help there. You have Cam Smith going there from South Carolina to number 22. Keely Ringo is pretty close. He was higher up the boards here, but he made a lot of plays for the national champions. The Jaguars tapped into that defense with Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall last year, so they're comfortable with that scheme for Doug Peterson. So again, this is a really good pickup here because Darius Williams has been okay. He kind of cashed in after that big year opposite Jalen Ramsey with the Rams. It's been kind of downhill since. They do like Tyson Campbell quite a bit. So when you look at Keely Ringo, makes a lot of sense. This division has Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce. The Titans are going to get better beyond Treylon Burks. You also have the Texans, probably the market for receiver. So good time if you're the Jaguars to upgrade at corner here. So good things to look at for sure. And the Jaguars are in a luxury spot here. They're a playoff team, playing a bit with house money, don't have any glaring needs in the first round. Corner would make a lot of sense to stash there. All right, let's go to the 25th pick, the Giants. I have been thinking defense either way. Brian Bresee was the pick there for my 7th-rounder. I switched to Trenton Simpson there. Either one of these players, good fit for the Giants front 7 to disrupt things. Giants could use some interior help after losing something in free agency. You look at Simpson, that could really help Kayvon Thibodeau there on the second level, as well as Bobby Okereke, the pickup from the Colts in free agency. So you get Simpson in there. They've been trying to force in Jared Davis, the former Lion. He's just kind of limited there. So get Simpson. It's going to upgrade the playmaking ability of the Giants defense, slowly getting better as something we're looking at the fantasy football radar. I think they get a little bit of punch in their defense. And I think you look at either way with Bresee or Simpson. Simpson, a little bit more active playmaker again. Giants, Vikings, it doesn't matter where Simpson goes. I think he's going to be active and put up a lot of numbers here with tackles and other plays for whatever team he goes to because he's that versatile. Get upfield, make a lot of plays. Tough, strong playmaker who can stay on the field for 3 downs. All right, let's go to the Cowboys. I'm sticking with their pick as well. Osiris Torrance, the powerful guard out of Florida. The Cowboys lose Connor McGovern in free agency. It's been tough with Connor Williams, La'el Collins, some of their recent departures. Right now, you look at their offensive line. You got Tyler Smith and Tyron Smith. Then you look at Zach Martin and their center, Tyler Biotic. So really the opening is there at left guard with Osiris Torrance. He can really be a road grader, run blocker. This is Brian Schottenheimer's offense now, not Kellen Moore's. They got Tony Pollard as a key workhorse. I think they would add a second back here in the draft to be a more of a powerful guy. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott comes back on a cheap deal, but Osiris Torrance would make a lot of sense and really be a boon to Tony Pollard here, really upgrade him as a power runner. So Pollard already looking good as an RB1. This is only going to help him with the means to that end. And finally, I have the Bills at 27 in this part of the mock draft, taking Drew Sanders out of Arkansas, a good hybrid linebacker safety. They did kind of recover at safety. They got Taylor Rapp there. They also brought back Jordan Poyer. So really, you need to look at Drew Sanders as a pure linebacker. Makes a lot of sense to replace Tremaine Edmonds. Matt Milano is the cover guy, can roam all over the field laterally, go back in coverage. Sanders is more of the upfield guy, very productive sack artist in college. Also a very good tackler against the run. So Drew Sanders active, nice size there. Very good direct replacement here in the scheme of one Sean McDermott calling plays to replace Edmonds next to Milano. All right, that's picks 24 through 27 in my latest mock drafts for Sporting News. We'll look at picks 28 through 31 to close the show and or look at my mock draft here. Again, looking at prospects beyond the first round. Our final 2 shows of the week that we should put our eyes on the radar for fantasy football for 2023. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Every dayers, we're really appreciative of you, and we've been making this week all about you guys. Really shout out for listening every day and bringing it here as we bring you shows every day here of the week on Locked On Network Fantasy Football. All right. It is time to close the show and look at picks 28 through 31, my latest mock draft. I did have the Bengals initially, and thinking about this player quite a bit. It's Anton Harrison, a right tackle prospect out of Oklahoma. But since Jonah Williams, they're okay adapting with him a little bit after signing Orlando Brown Jr. to be a left tackle. So they're okay with Jonah Williams potentially playing right tackle. They also have some other options there. So, again, it doesn't look like they're going to move on from Williams. There's still a possibility if they do that, then they would look at Harrison at right tackle. But the Bengals have also been attached to another player. That's Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. This would be great here for the Bengals. They lost Hayden Hurst last offseason. CJ Uzama was gone. Drew Sample also is not returning here for the Bengals. So When you look at that, I mean, this void is there. Irv Smith Jr. was their flyer, but keep in mind, Smith has not been able to stay healthy for the Vikings with some knee issues here. Dalton Kincaid would present a lot of upside in the position, especially if they run into a contract snag with T. Higgins or can't keep Tyler Boyd as a key third target on this team behind Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So Kincaid gives them a different element. We know early with Uzama, we saw that it was feeling it for Joe Burrow. So he'll really appreciate having a field stretching athletic receiving tight end in Kincaid. So Harrison or Kincaid, I think that's what you look at here for the Bengals. They can also think about a safety if Brian Branch out of Alabama falls, but I think you can get better safety value in the second round. So offensive skill position, offensive line, a good priority early for the Bengals at 28 overall. At 29, the Saints got their quarterback in Derek Carr. So maybe looking for defensive help. They've been really weak on the pass rush beyond Cameron Jordan. They restructured his deal to come back. But you have Trey Hendrickson and Marcus Davenport. They're both gone in free agency the past 2 years. Nolan Smith would be that high upside pass rusher. It's good to groom him behind Jordan. He gives that consistent all-around play. Smith is a dynamic speed, quickness athlete. The numbers are still not big yet because, again, he was in a rotation in Georgia where there was a lot of guys vying for sacks and putting up numbers. But Smith absolutely blew the doors off at the combine, showing he's fully recovered from any injury issues at the end of last season. So Nolan Smith makes a lot of sense for the Saints. And the Saints could emerge here as the NFC South favorites. There's some weak quarterbacks. Otherwise, as Desmond Ritter is breaking in, the Falcons are going to hope that he is capable as a starter. You have the Panthers looking at the number one overall pick being their starting quarterback. And, of course, the Buccaneers, for the moment, have a battle between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. So Nolan Smith could rack up some sacks right away, playing off Cameron Jordan, have some explosive upside there to make them feel a little bit better about seeing Hendrickson and Davenport lead in recent seasons. All right, number 30, the Eagles, the Super Bowl runner-up picking here. I did have them taking Jahmyr Gibbs, and I don't think it's out of the realm that they would look at Bijan Robinson with that earlier pick in the first round as well. But that's pretty high at number 10. They could move up from number 30 if Bijan slips a little bit. Right now, I have him going 18th to the Lions. So you look at Jahmyr Gibbs again. The Eagles have Rashad Penny as their lead back, but we know he's got a ton of durability issues as he tries to replace Miles Sanders. I don't think they're going to feel totally comfortable, as you mentioned, just going with Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott as their main backs should Penny have a breakdown. So it makes sense to go after the workhorse. So Gibbs would be in play here for the Eagles at 30. But they also love this player, this edge rusher there that can help behind Brandon Graham, who's getting up there, coming back for one more year. That's Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. High motor, relentless pass rusher. Their type of player here in their scheme, even though they lost Jonathan Gannon, their defensive coordinator. Lucas Van Ness makes a lot of sense here. Again, going after the quarterbacks in this division. Dak Prescott, pretty solid here for the Cowboys. You got Daniel Jones settling it in, and then going after Sam Howell and the Commanders. So Lucas Van Ness would be a big asset here as a situational pass rusher to really boost the Eagles, but do not rule out going for running back, either trading up for Robinson or taking Gibbs straight up at 30. At number 31, the two things that the Chiefs need, offensive line help. Andrew Wiley signed with the Commanders, so we know they're looking for that right tackle. They did get Jawan Taylor to replace Orlando Brown at left tackle, so Anton Harrison would make a lot of sense. They had a lot of success going to Oklahoma with Creed Humphrey. At center, Trey Smith has also worked out as a steal of a draft pick. So Anton Harrison would be another big asset for the running game. Isaiah Pacheco and be better pass protection for Patrick Mahomes. But they can also look for the pass rush here. Need someone to potentially complement George Karlaftis, moved on from Frank Clark. So in some combination, I think you'll go offensive line and edge rush in the first two rounds for the Chiefs. Isaiah Foskey of Notre Dame, very productive guy. Fighting Irish's all-time leading sack guy. So you get him in the Chiefs, and Steve Spagnuolo can make a lot of plays there. Disrupt defensively in the division again with very good quarterbacks, with Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, and Jimmy Garoppolo. All right, there you have it. There's a breakdown of the 21 through 31 overall picks in the first round of my latest mock drafts for Sporting News. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available on all platforms. Subscribe and follow for free wherever you get your podcasts. And again, every day or so, tomorrow on the show, we're going to look at the sleeper prospects from day 2 that we should put our radar on for fantasy football. We'll do that. And then we'll look at beyond that. We know there's some guys that usually emerge from the 4th through 7th rounds as being fantasy football assets. either as rookies or sometime in their career. So we'll look at those other impact players that you can look at, second and third round players tomorrow, and then we'll go 4 through 7 on Friday's show. Thanks again. This has been Vinnie Iyer for Locked On Fantasy Football. Have a great day, and we'll check you out with more draft talk next on the show.